Something made you stop. Maybe you were crossing a room and caught a shape through the glass. Maybe you stepped outside and went still because something else went still first. A fox, sitting in the open, not moving, looking directly at your house. You watched it. It did not run. It did not look away. It sat with that amber gaze fixed on something, on the door, on the window, on you. And the longer it stayed, the more you felt like you were the one who needed to explain yourself. You went back inside. It was still there. You came back. Still there. When it finally moved, it walked away slowly, without looking back. No fear. No rush. Like it had finished something and was satisfied. That moment stayed with you. It stays with most people who experience it. Because something about a wild animal choosing to sit still in plain sight of your home, without fear, without moving, does not feel random. It is not random. It never is. Here is what nobody tells you. Every behavior a fox displays in plain daylight, in clear sight of a human, is deliberate. Foxes do not make accidental eye contact and forget to look away. They do not sit in exposed positions without a reason. What you witnessed was the result of a decision, and that decision was about you and your home specifically. Most people never find out what that decision was. You are about to. Welcome to the Near Wild. If this is your first time here, subscribe, because what you are about to learn will change how you see every animal that steps into your yard. Today, we are going deep on the fox that would not look away. We are going through 7 things that fox was telling you. What the stillness means. What the stare means. What it has already decided about you, and what is happening in that mind while it watches. Stay until the very end. The last thing is not a behavior at all. It is something most people find impossible to explain, and the ones who have experienced it tend to carry it for a long time. Item 1. The stare is not aggression. It is a file being updated. This is the first thing most people get wrong. A fox that is angry or cornered does not sit down. It does not make sustained eye contact from a comfortable distance. Aggression in foxes looks like flattened ears, a lowered head, and movement, not stillness. What you saw was something different. Foxes categorize every human they encounter into one of 2 groups, threat or non-threat. The sitting, staring posture is the process of making that determination. The fox is reading your body language, your movement, your response to its presence. It is running a calculation. Research from the University of Bristol's long-term urban fox study found that foxes in residential areas maintain individual recognition of the humans who regularly occupy their territory. The fox did not look away because it was in the middle of collecting data. You were part of that data. Item 2. The fox has seen you before. If a fox sits in open sight of a human and does not run, it has already decided that specific human is not a danger. A fox encountering a stranger doesn't sit. It freezes, assesses from cover, and withdraws. The calm, open stare is a behavior that only appears toward individuals the fox has already classified as known. The fox was not seeing you for the first time. It had watched you from distances you were not aware of. It had logged your movements, your schedule, your behavior on that property. By the time it sat in your yard and looked at you directly, it had already made its assessment. The stare was not the beginning of that process. It was close to the end. Item 3. The fox may have been listening, not watching. A fox's ears move independently of each other. They rotate like small satellite dishes, each tracking a different sound source at the same time. Researchers at Oxford University studying wild red fox behavior documented that foxes frequently use a forward-facing, completely still posture, what looks like sustained visual focus, when they are primarily using their hearing rather than their eyes. The gaze you saw may have been directional. The fox may have been facing your house because something inside it, or beneath the ground near it, was producing a sound you could not hear. Foxes can detect the movement of small animals underground at distances of up to 30 feet through a combination of hearing and ground vibration sensing. The house itself, its pipes, its heat, may have been what the fox was processing. You may have been secondary to something it could hear that you were completely unaware of. Item 4. There is almost certainly a den somewhere close to your property. Foxes do not sit in exposed, visible positions in open daylight without a strong reason to monitor that location. The behavior you saw, calm, sustained, unafraid, is most commonly documented in foxes that have a den, cubs, or a food cache within close range of the observation point. The fox was not visiting your yard. It was watching over something near it. Red foxes in suburban areas typically maintain dens within a quarter-mile of the locations where they regularly observe human activity. The space under a porch, behind a garden structure, beneath a dense shrub line, in a neglected corner of an adjacent property. Any of these is a viable den site. The fox sitting in your yard was not exploring. It was monitoring something it already owned. What comes next changes how this looks entirely. Because what a fox is doing when it stares is not just observation. It is something most people find genuinely difficult to believe until they understand the science behind it. Item 5. The fox has been tracking your routine. Urban fox studies conducted across multiple European cities have documented that foxes learn the behavioral schedules of individual residents within their territory. They learn when lights come on and go off. They learn which doors open in the morning and how long the person who opens them tends to stand outside. They learn which nights the trash goes to the curb. The fox sitting in your yard was not behaving spontaneously. It was there at a time it had calculated was low risk. It had arrived when you were most likely to be indoors, or moving slowly, or occupied. The fact that you saw it at all means your own schedule introduced a variable the fox had not accounted for. You surprised it slightly, but it did not run. Because you, specifically, were already in its file as non-threatening. Item 6. The distance between you and the fox was not accidental. It was a measurement. Researchers who study animal behavior use the term flight initiation distance. It is the minimum distance at which a specific animal will tolerate the presence of a specific perceived threat before fleeing. Every wild animal carries a different flight initiation distance for every individual human it has assessed. A fox that sits 20 feet from your door has a different assessment of you than a fox that sits at 50 feet. The exact distance it chose was a statement. It was as close as its trust allowed. Research published in behavioral ecology journals has documented that light initiation distances in urban foxes decrease measurably with repeated non-threatening contact, meaning the fox's tolerance of your proximity grows over time. If the fox was close, it was telling you something about the history between you, whether you were aware of that history or not. Item 7. The direction the fox was facing may matter more than you realize. Czech and German researchers studying red fox hunting behavior documented something unexpected. Foxes are most successful when they hunt in a north-northeast direction. They appear to use Earth's magnetic field to orient their final approach to prey. The finding was published by the research team at the Czech University of Life Sciences and it was among the first documented evidence of a mammal using magnetic field orientation to improve hunting accuracy. Foxes have magnetite crystals in their retinas. They do not just see light. They perceive the magnetic field of the planet as a visual layer laid over everything else they see. When a fox sits very still and stares with abhorrent intensity, it may be cross-referencing several sensory systems simultaneously: visual, magnetic, auditory, olfactory, in a single moment of focused processing. You are watching an animal that perceives the world in at least 4 dimensions. It was sitting in your yard, doing something your own biology has no equivalent for. The last thing is not a behavior. It is a question, and most people who sit with it long enough find that it changes something. The fox that sat in your yard was not passing through. It was operating inside a territory it has mapped in extraordinary detail. That map exists in its brain as something researchers describe as a spatial memory network, a precise, continuously updated model of the landscape it moves through. Every path, every structure, every human, every scent marker, every change in ground texture, every sound signature. Your house is in that map. The shape of it, the sounds it makes at night, the heat it releases in winter, the smell of the people inside. The fox knows your property with a specificity that would take you weeks to acquire and months to maintain. Most people spend very little time thinking about what they look like to the animals that watch them. They move through their yards and their routines, and they assume they are largely invisible to the wild things nearby. They are not invisible. They are known quantities. They have been observed, catalogued, and assessed by creatures with sensory systems that make human perception look blunt. The fox sat in your yard in open daylight. It looked at your house. It did not hide. It chose a specific distance, not random, not instinctive, but calculated, and it stayed there until it had finished what it came to do. And somewhere in the map it carries, in the file it keeps, there is an entry for you. For this house, for the human who comes and goes through that door and has never once offered a reason to be afraid. The next time you see it, it may be closer. Tell me in the comments, where was the fox when you first noticed it? And how long did it stay? I want to know what happened the moment it finally decided to move.